I mean, the only thing that I would encourage people to do after this is to do some study on red light therapy. And you don't have to go read a PubMed article or do a clinical, start diving into these 70-page clinical studies. You don't need to do that. Just go to YouTube and type red light therapy. What is it? Watch a few videos. And I always say to get onto the light train.
Awekenge, this is Mental Matters, hosted by Asegototo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Matters. I'm your host, Asegototo. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
Your background, it's quite interesting because you were an athlete in rugby, CrossFit, and amateur boxing. Quite something that I feel like it's something that I'm quite interested. What actually made you be so interested in this line, in terms of these lines of profession? Definitely, it involves physical contact. So, what actually made you actually be interested in it?
Yeah, I was just very aggressive as a young athlete. Right. I was very much a go-getter, you could say. Obsessed with challenging myself and pushing myself to the limit. So I did choose sports that were quite aggressive to the body. Definitely amateur boxing is a sport that I still love. Boxing is always going to be my passion, but it resulted in lots of impact to the brain, which resulted in some micro traumas. And a tumor developed, which I had to have taken out. It was probably the most invasive surgery that I've ever dealt with in my competitive career. But throughout all those sports, and suffering a lot of injuries to my knees, my shoulders, both my knees were quite damaged, and shoulders as well. I'm very tall. So doing sports, my joints weren't so strong as I was growing up in my younger years. But yeah, light therapy actually helped me recover. I found relief, and it was actually introduced to me by my wife. She's Chinese, and she bought me this lamp that was quite difficult to use, but I started to use it because she was very adamant about me using it. She was very insistent that I try this out. But after 2 weeks, I didn't have the pain anymore, and I didn't need to use the red light therapy lamp anymore. But it triggered an interest into what light therapy was, and developing a product, which is now the Lumaflex. And it's something that's portable, a very, very high dose of light therapy that you can aim at anywhere, aim at the pain, aim at an area that you're suffering with. And yeah, it's a brand that I'm very, very passionate about, not just the product itself, but also the technology. I'm trying to raise awareness, increase people's understanding of natural treatment over using pharmaceuticals. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And but my goal, like I said, is to raise awareness about red light therapy and have people use this over, using drugs and potentially even surgery.
And when it comes to before we get into light therapy, and definitely it's something that is it's the core of our conversation. I just want to actually talk more on your tumor and instead in a way of how did you feel when you actually received the news? Mentally, definitely. It has
Yes.
definitely your mindset was in a different space as much as you were someone that was quite active. Definitely, we both know that in terms of exercising, in a way of training in some it has its benefit from mental health. But definitely when you come across news that actually of you have a tumor or you have cancer, you have that certain thing, it changes your perspectives. Can you walk us through that, the way
That's
you
right.
felt?
Yeah, that's right. That's very true, right? It's like you suffer a very mental blow. You realize that you're only human. You're not
Mm,
superhuman. You know,
mm,
you're not invincible. You're very much breakable. And it's a
mm,
very hard thing to deal with mentally because someone like,
mm,
myself and all athletes, they do this. They put a lot of value into their competitive side, right? Into their competitive edge.
mm,
That's their identity. That's the
mm,
flag that
mm,
they put in the earth. This is who I am. I'm a beast. I'm competitive and I win. So when you suffer an injury, it's a blow to that identity. It's a blow to that core essence of who you are, the value that you give to the world. And I remember yeah, I would get a lot of headaches. I would get these pains. Like it was like somebody was poking a nail into my head. It was always in
mm,
the back of my head. I would feel it like right there. It was like a very sharp pain. And I remember there was a day I was out, I think it was on a holiday or something with my wife. But I had a very severe headache, which
mm,
she encouraged me to go get a check. And I remember going to get a scan and the doctor telling me that there was a tumor there. It's a very it's not the best news, but it definitely shows it's humbling. That's the word, right? It's very, very humbling
mm,
as an athlete to know that you can suffer and that things will break and you need to be conscious of your well-being and your health. But I remember that day very well when I got that news. And I remember asking him, I said, like, what's going on? Like, is this dangerous? Am I going to die? And I remember the doctor said, like, well, it's the tumor's growing into your brain, right? It's making its way into your brain. So if you delay surgery, it's more difficult to get this tumor out. And it's
mm,
growing into your brain. So it is fatal. So he said, you have about 11 months to plan a surgery, or it's going to be very difficult for the surgeons to be able to take this out. But I had a window of time to where I could, schedule a surgery and go in for an operation. Um, but yeah, it was just something I was very happy to have found, and I didn't just ignore this headache,
mm,
and let it get too severe. But yeah, I
mm,
remember also with rugby when I busted my shoulder and I was rushed to hospital. And rugby's a team. It's very, very high impact sport, right? It's very
yeah,
dangerous.
definitely,
I find it way more dangerous than combat sports because you can't
definitely.
see who's coming at you in the field. You're focused on the line, and somebody can come and they can hit you without you knowing. So it's a very dynamic sport. There's a lot of
Mm,
uncertainty. And I remember going off to hospital to deal with my shoulder, but you're with all your friends, your team, you're on tour. It's an exciting energy in the tournament. It's something that you're very amped up as a young athlete. You want to win the tournament, and then suddenly you're in
yeah.
hospital and you're the guy that broke. It's
Mhm, mm,
very humbling. It's very, very humbling. And it's something that as a true athlete kind of is familiar with the lows, because after the lows, there's the learning isn't at that time. That's when you learn. That's when you grow.
mm,
That's when you become more mentally strong, and you
mm,
build your fortitude to go on. So I've definitely have become very comfortable with having the getting kicked in the balls and suffering failure.
mm,
And I've become very comfortable with that. And when you meet combat fighters, something very interesting, when you meet, professional fighters, they're the most humble people. They're the very, very nice people. And it's just because that in their career, getting to where they are, and they're now very prominent, they're famous, they're very good fighters. They've suffered a lot of loss, a lot of failure. So they have they're very balanced, they're very cordial, they're very respectful. It's the young fighters that are trying to prove themselves, that haven't gone through that hero's journey. They're the ones that are aggressive and abrasive. So yeah, that's a very good point. It's a good question. It's to show like your mental fortitude and your resilience. That famous line from Rocky, Rocky, that Rocky movie says like, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard.
I know it.
Yeah, it's very true in all sports. It's like you're how you're defined as an athlete, as a competitive athlete, and even as a human, is how you deal with failure, how you're mentally able to rise up again, learn from it, and move forward. And I can, looking back now, I'm almost 39 next week. Happily married, next year we're looking at having kids. I can look back on my younger years and really appreciate not the wins, but the lows, because the lows create the wins. That's when as soon as you're at the bottom, that's when you come up to the top, so it's something to always keep note of, that, you want to train your mind to appreciate times that when when the world kicks you down. You want to appreciate those times, because that's the trigger to going back up. Live it.
And it goes back to a line that's said by a quote by Chris Farmstead, where he says that the winning mentality is not about actually winning, it's about not giving up. And most people actually give up. For example, you have a tumor, and one will be devastated, and instead of actually keep on pushing, trying to actually making the tough decision of going to surgery. Because definitely there are people that I believe that they ain't sure about surgery, because to me surgery is 50-50. And definitely two things that I've seen, two movies that I've seen in a way of it's 50-50, patient dies, but most of the time the surgery is successful. But in terms of, some people might find that of it's gonna cost me more, and definitely in a way of people will actually think in terms of the side of negative. Yeah, I understand at that moment to think on a positive way, but at the same time need to have that mentality of being positive. One thing that will never fail you is thinking positive, because it goes back to that placebo effect. Is that thing of, if you believe that this thing will hurt you, it will hurt you. And same thing when it comes to medication, something that it is big. Something that is big that I know is the fact that people that if you believe that this thing will help you, it will help you. If you have doubt in your mind of saying this thing won't help you, you will have that mindset. No, flip, this thing won't help me. What's the use? Because things like that, I really applaud you for that. And moving on to recovery. How was recovery in terms of going back to your old self and realizing that since you have learned from all your setbacks, how did that actually make you see the world in a point of view? Definitely, when you come in such events, your brain changes. It operates differently. It operates differently. How can you actually tell us more about that in terms of how recovery came onto you? How did you actually manage to actually change your mindset? How did you see that mental health is so important?
Yeah, you definitely, any kind of physical activity and achievements and growth that you get from sports, from training in the gym, you can directly translate this to your life, to your career, to your family, to your friends, to growth in other areas of your life. You can definitely, there's a clear transition over. And you start to, as you get older, you learn from experience. You start to build your life philosophy. You realize that some things that you put a lot of attention to, a lot of things you put a lot of value to, that perhaps they were not so important. You start to realize what really matters. You start to prioritize better, and I think, yeah, after I recovered from all my injuries, I found a lot of success in other areas that I didn't know, I wasn't aware of. I didn't have these areas on my roadmap of my life. They weren't in my career. So opportunities come, right? New opportunities come that you weren't aware of. You could only access these opportunities, with by falling down. And then when you pick yourself back up again, suddenly the world opens up. Like the last sport that I competed in was bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is very safe. There's no impact in bodybuilding. Nobody's throwing punches at you in bodybuilding. But I did very well in bodybuilding. My very first competition that I did, I got second place, and I did 3 more competitions afterwards, like within 7 weeks. And I averaged second place on everything. So it was not that I right now I'm not so interested in bodybuilding anymore, but definitely on the, it wasn't something I was planning to do, was go into bodybuilding. I had no idea that I could, achieve anything in a sport again or compete again. But, the universe had plans, and the universe, there was other opportunity. But bodybuilding, for sure, and by excelling in bodybuilding, there a lot of value came in terms of network, in terms of building my career, the network from my career. That was actually very, very valuable. So there's always value and opportunity in places that you never know, and you don't only go through the journey, get hit down, get back up, and then discover, more, opportunities on the horizon. It's very magical. Yeah.
And talking about setbacks in terms of waking up, something that is quite hard at first, and you ask yourself, why is this happening to me? What did I do to actually deserve this? Having that sort of questions. But the more you learn about it, the more you realize, oh, flip. This is something that in a way I want to see. And it's something that would benefit me in the long run. For example, I had in a way of fractured bone and dislocated wrist at the same time. And instead of actually looking at that perception that, oh, flip, why is this happening to me? Or like crying about it, I actually saw it as an opportunity to learn something. What I mean by learning something is the fact that the pain that is there, yes, there's pain, and it's not like that pain will kill me. And that's how I really changed my mentality. And in all honesty, it surprised me because this happened back in 2021. The second year, the second year the second year of my podcast, because I started this on 2020. So I did it, and this thing happened in, I would say, in the second year. And one would say, no, you have gained a lot of information because you have a podcast that you invite people to speak about holistic healing, things like that, emotional intelligence. But that wasn't the case, because back then I didn't get in depth when it comes to mental health. I didn't get in terms of, didn't know what it meant to be holistic when it comes to holistic age, in holistic approach, holistic mindset, and and something that really changed me when it comes to pain. Speaking about holistic, you mentioned holistic, and firstly, what is red light in therapy? and how does it work?
Yeah, that's kind of my mission now. That's the opportunity that was given to me from all my pain. So my pain story resulted in healing with red light therapy. And now I have my own product. I have my own brand. It's a global company. We're servicing like all the major regions in the world. So there's a big opportunity that's come from serious pain. But red light therapy is from the sun. So don't forget, it's from the sun. It's available to us outside at all the time. But red and near infrared, these wavelengths of light, the more optimal time to get them is at sunrise and sunset, the golden hour, when you see that beautiful color of light, at sunrise and sunset. That's where we get our red and infrared light. It's available throughout the day, but also UV light, which is harmful to our skin, harmful to our cells. So it's the optimal time is sunrise and sunset. So we're getting the wavelengths of light in those nanometers, the red and infrared light spectrum, and we're putting them into a device at a very high concentrated dosage. But it's whenever I talk about red light, I'd like to keep it very simple because most people don't, even though it is famous in the world now in sports. There's Joe Rogan talks about it, Gary Brecka, Andrew Huberman, like all of these guys that are quite famous, they're quite prominent. They talk about it a lot. Still, it's still unknown. It's a gray area, and not many people are stepping into it and trying it out. So I always talk a bit like your body. Think of your body as a solar panel, right? And the light gives you energy. The same way that when you plug your phone in, you're plugging you're giving battery to your phone. The light is giving your body energy. And when your phone is running out of battery, you see like apps are very slow to use, and it starts to get slow, right? You need to charge it. It's the same with our bodies. When we get drained, when we're lazy, or when we're unmotivated, we need energy, and that energy we can get from light. So red and infrared light, there's in this device here, I've got 630 and 850. 630 is a red light nanometer, right? This wavelength of light goes about an inch into the body, and 850 is an infrared light nanometer that goes about 4 inches into the body. So the light goes through your skin and it penetrates into your mitochondria. So you as a human are made up of cells, billions of cells, and inside that cell is a mitochondria, the driver, the energy, the engine of the cell. And by giving energy to your mitochondria, your cell can actually do what it's supposed to do. So with giving energy to the mitochondria, we're able to achieve a wide range of outcomes, but they're all based on 3 mechanisms. One is increased blood circulation. Second is increased ATP, cellular energy. And 3 is anti-inflammation, right? Turning off your body's switch, the anti-inflammation switch. So if you think about like beauty masks, the LED masks that women wear, beautiful. So it's producing collagen in your skin, right? It's helping you deal with wrinkles, with pimples, right? With your complexion. So that's on the beauty side. Then you have like for medical use, it's for wound healing. If you've suffered a serious accident and you've got a lot of scratches, the red light can accelerate the healing process on your skin. Red light therapy is also used for hair growth. They have helmets that you wear to support, hair regeneration. It boosts your body's testosterone. It's now being used as like for males are buying devices, to increase their testosterone. They're aiming, a red light therapy device on their balls. It's but it's been clinically proven. It's been and widely used. But where I focus my attention on in terms of an outcome is pain management, and having people use it for pain, for chronic pain, for joint pain, muscle pain, arthritis, sciatica, like very serious pain that people have been dealing with for a long time. Instead of getting pain medication, use light, because the light's not healing you. The light is giving your cells energy to heal themselves. So, and many, if you look at the statistics now about we as humans back in ancient times, how much sunlight we used to have, we're 95% more deficient in sunlight today living in concrete jungles than we were before. So light is something that is just as important as clean water, healthy food, regular sleep, regular exercise. We need this on a daily basis. So having red and infrared light easily accessible is what we're all about with Lumaflex. And that's my goal, is to encourage everybody to be consistent with light therapy and use light therapy on a daily basis.
And you mentioned Dr. Huberman, and it's something that really I agree where he speaks about circadian rhythm, and definitely it wasn't my first to actually speak in terms of hearing about in terms of light. How does it actually has good effects towards us and our bodies? And I had a conversation with a guest, and Jason, I forgot his last name, Jason. He actually big advocate on circadian rhythm. And recently I just had a guest, whereas we spoke about light in a perspective of women in terms of menopause and perimenopause. And it really intrigued me, how is light very beneficial to us? And also you mentioned face masks in terms of with light, these LED. Another guest actually spoke about it. It's quite a conversation that really intrigued me to actually want to get better in general when it comes to therapy, when it comes to therapy to better myself. Because how he actually speaks about circadian rhythm, Dr. Huberman, is the fact that you need light in your life in general. And I remember another guest spoke in terms of comparing people who work from offices, comparing people who work outside, definitely into the construction. And he said that people that work towards that side have better mental well-being and better in terms of health compared to people that work in offices. That really intrigued me, because we are taught that we need to study and work on offices, neglecting the part of like there's this disadvantage if you work in office. And
Yes.
it's a conversation that, yes, it's not a conversation that is part of this conversation that we are having, but it's something that's quite fascinating. And another thing that I want to bring up, Dr. Huberman speak about circadian rhythm, and within the circadian rhythm he mentions the sun and mentions the artificial light. How is it safe to actually use red light therapy when it comes to artificial light? As we know, because I saw you in terms of facing towards your face. Because another reason I brought this up is the fact that I've seen how light has an effect within my eyes. Because yeah, you live in a digital world, but at the same time we need to protect ourselves. But how is it safe towards people that have problem with eyes, that have actually can't afford those glasses that protect them from that artificial light?
Yeah, like with Lumaflex, on my manual, I say do not look directly at the LEDs, keep your eyes closed. But I've seen a lot of studies that show actually 3 minutes a day looking at red and infrared light with open eyes to actually help with eye disease, to actually improve eyesight. That's a very interesting space in photobiomodulation that is being talked about a lot, is using red and infrared light to improve, eye health. That's very that's an interesting side. I know that I think Joe Rogan himself, he did mention that he looks at the light 3 minutes a day, and he has said my eyes have improved. I don't need to wear glasses, which is quite exciting. I think eyesight, eye health, and then the brain health, and brain diseases, neurodegenerative diseases using photobiomodulation. These two areas in photobiomodulation, I think, are the most exciting, that we're seeing a lot of great clinical research come out supporting the use of red and infrared light. So definitely, if anybody wants to research, deeper into that, you'll be amazed at, what is being shown in terms of like actual recovery, better eyesight, better neuroplasticity in your brain, recovery from brain disease. That's quite an interesting space. But yeah, like you said, circadian rhythm. Like when you're looking at mental health and light, a lot of the anxiety, depression, a lot of mental issues are occurred just because we're not on our circadian rhythm. We're messing up our circadian rhythm because artificial light keeps us awake when we should go to sleep. And this is a lot of it is like on your phone exposed to blue light, which is actually creates inflammation in your body. At night, when you're looking at your phone, your brain wants to sleep, but you're also telling it to wake up with the blue light. So I always use my Lumaflex as like a night light. I have this on, when it's time to go to bed. I won't use any artificial light. I'll turn off the lights and I'll only use red light to support telling my body to quieten down, to go to sleep. And then when you wake up, try to get outside. First thing to do is to always get outside, and expose your eyes to natural light, because that's what tells your circadian rhythm to start. It's time to wake up. It's like that little alarm clock, right? So yeah, it's just taking the understanding, ideal sleep patterns and how you should be behaving in terms of when to wake up, when to sleep, greatly supports your mental health. Not to mention actually, servicing your mental health by addressing pain in a natural way, steering away from pharmaceuticals. There's so much mental benefit from just using natural, non-invasive means of treatment that's available to us, and it's been available to us, since the beginning of time. It's just now in different modalities. It's in different devices and equipment, but it's all available there. And that's something now that the whole mental health world is taking note of and incorporating it into practices and treatment to service people's anxiety and depression and even PTSD, right?
Lot you spoke about, and definitely there's this new rise on dopamine. Dopamine has never been so, I would say, that so popular the way it is so popular nowadays. Because in a way of we want to actually treat our need to, we actually have this need to actually feed our brains with a lot of when it comes to, okay, I want to be happy. And in order for me to be happy, it's either I scroll through social media and that has a dopamine boost. It's either just because I don't want to actually deal with my problems, I drink, that is a dopamine booster. I take drugs, that's a dopamine booster. And definitely, and whenever the dopamine dies, we crash down. And sometimes it's quite hard to rise up. And in all honesty, it's something that I have gained from, which is this circadian rhythm. Whereas I try by any means to actually get that 10 minutes a day, that 10 minutes early in the morning for that light. But unfortunately, sometimes I'm able to do that because of the rain, because of the gloomy weather. But whenever I get a chance, I'm able to actually do that. And also the use of cold showers. And again, also it's something that is quite big in the field of circadian rhythm, because it has scientific benefits, because when it comes to dopamine, whereas apparently the dopamine of taking a shower and compared to doing cocaine is the same level, but the difference is the fact that the cocaine easily it's short term, whereas taking a cold shower is a long term. And my questioning goes back to that. And when it comes to light, don't you, in terms of if since people are actually might be actually reading the studies and realize, oh flip, this thing works for me, and definitely would, in a way of, as much as they don't have that pain and will use it for all reasons. And we have seen it through Ozempic. People are using Ozempic for weight loss instead of diabetes. So aren't you actually worried in a way of, okay, now people are using it for wrong reasons? Aren't you worried about that?
No, not really. I mean, I just want anybody to use red light for it's not, the question is not what can, what can't you use red light therapy for? The question is what can't you, right? It you can use it for anything. But yeah, I just any and all opportunities to get red light therapy talked about, used, discussed, debated about, contradicted, encouraged, endorsed, I'm all for. I don't see every other photobiomodulation device and company that is producing anything to do with light therapy. I see us all as one family, and we're all trying to change the world. So the more we can cross over and raise awareness, I think it's something that it's going to take a lot of time, but I'm all for it. I'm just trying to get the word out as much as possible.
Definitely. I understand the point that you come from, because sometimes I have seen it when it comes even on mental health. People were not talking about mental health and talking about mental health. All of a sudden, people are talking about mental health. And I believe that with red light therapy, it will be the same case, because people will be quite interested. Oh, flip, what is this? And realize have debates about it in a way, because sometimes when it comes to the light, people don't want to engage in self conversation. Oh, flip, this conversation is serious, and not realize that it has whole a lot of benefits. So what would you like the audience to take from our conversation today when it comes to red light and truly your story?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, thank you for having me on, and everybody listening. I mean, the only thing that I would encourage people to do after this is to do some study on red light therapy. And you don't have to go read a PubMed article or do a clinical, start diving into these 70-page clinical studies. You don't need to do that. Just go to YouTube and type red light therapy. What is it? Watch a few videos. And I always say to get onto the light train. I call it the light train. It's a train we get on, and we're leaving fast. So yeah. It's being a little bit noisy here. My neighbors are being a bit noisy, so sorry about that. Finally,
I can't hear you.
Yeah, you can't hear?
But I can't hear anything on my side.
Okay, it's a little bit noisy, my neighbors. Finally, check us out at lumaflex.com. So that's maybe a device that is suited for you, maybe not. Whatever it is, just study up on light therapy and integrate it into your life.
Love that. And actually, something interesting I was actually going to ask you, in terms of where can people learn more about red light therapy and with your company Luminex. And definitely it's quite a conversation that I believe that we should need to keep on talking about it, because one would actually think about it in a way of physical pain. Or flip, I need to buy this just for physical pain, not actually realizing the fact that no, flip, it has some mental health benefits on it. So thank you so much for that. And definitely, are you available on any social medias so that people can actually follow you and actually look up what something that you're up to?